We just recently launched the R2, which is our RevivTwo, our new appliance. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about it and how it's different from our R1. I think it's important to say that some context about the R1. So we started this business without knowing whether it would be a business, right? I was just blogging. Some of the posts were doing pretty well. We said, hey, why don't we try and sell Mouthguard? I just sourced something from China after trying many. So I bought a whole bunch of samples, tried them all out on myself. I had used mouth guards, I'd used the MyRace A1 and a bunch of other mouth guards for about 10 years. I kind of knew what I was looking for. So the R1 was the closest to kind of what I was looking for, right? And I didn't find like the perfect thing. I used it for a couple weeks, but I didn't really know how good was it going to be. Right. And I think one thing that we found out was that it was less durable than I had hoped. So I think on average, the R1 probably lasts like 2 months, maybe 3 months. Some people that are grinders and clenchers can even rip it up in the first week. And some folks have made it to like 4 months, right? But that's about as long as I've heard. And then it deforms and sometimes it rips. So we were looking to solve for that with the R2. Like I wanted to create a durable appliance that we could really be proud of, that would represent our brand. So we decided to use our color, the gold from our Revive logo, and make something that I thought would be as good as anything on the market from mouth guards. I wanted to make it as good as the MyBrace appliance that I used and better than anything I saw on Amazon. And I've used, over the years, I've tried most of the things that you can get on Amazon. And also we were trying to take into account some feedback. So there was a lot of feedback about the R1 riding too high in the gums. So we cut it shorter so that it wouldn't rub against the gums as much. And there were some side holes that some folks were complaining about, which we got rid of. So we tried to take into account some of that feedback as well. And when we first tried to get the R2, we actually didn't try to design anything. Like I tried to go to the good mouthguard manufacturers that I'd heard of. Most of them were in Europe. And I wrote to them. So these are companies like Sodis, which is in France, which I had used back in 2018-19. I still have a whole bunch of them sitting in my house, and I use them once in a while, and it's a pretty good appliance. But they didn't respond back to me. Then I also tried like in Trident in Italy, Amcop in Italy, Habit Corrector. So these 3 Italian companies who all make like mouth guards for dentists, but all these companies basically just sold B2B to dentists. They didn't want to sell to end consumers. So I got no response or I got a response back that they weren't going to sell to me. Finally, I said, okay, screw it. Looks like I gotta make one myself. That turned out to be a bit challenging because I wanted to make something good. And the problem with most things that are on sale on Amazon and AliExpress is that they're not very good. So how do you make something good? Well, I had to talk to a number of suppliers, and I found out that the better material, the more lasting one, was this liquid silicone. Finally, I found a supplier that was willing to work with me on creating a design. And so they would send me a design like in this kind of 3-dimensional program, and I would give a little bit of feedback and how we wanted to change. And finally, we agreed on a design. We also needed to agree on making molds. So molds, when you want to make a new mold for a mouthguard, it's actually a pretty expensive endeavor. It cost us, I think, well over $10,000. And it took a number of months for them to make the mold and then get us a sample, harder than I had expected. I thought like making a mold would cost a few $100 and I would have something in a couple of weeks. But instead it costed, over $10,000 and it took a couple months. But anyway, it was a good experience. And the supplier, we're still using the supplier that we made that with because we're very happy with them. So I think we got really lucky on that. And when I got these samples, I started using it for a couple weeks myself, and I really liked it. The material was kind of like much more durable. It was very clearly going to last a long time, and it felt easier on the gums. So it solved for the issues that we were trying to solve for. And it was still made of the 100% food grade silicone. And we went with making the medium and large size. So our R1 was large size and small size. The small size for R1 was quite small. So, women with a smaller mouth were okay with it, but it was more almost like kid size, I would say. And so with this, we went with medium, which is a bit bigger. So the R2 comes in medium and large. Large is about the same size as the R1 large, same width, but it's longer. And the medium is a bit bigger than the R1 small. And so R2 medium is pretty good for, I think, most women that have like an average or even a smaller mouth. And also we made it gold, both in the medium and the large, whereas the R1 was blue. The reason we did this is I'm often looking for the mouth guard at night, like in my bed, it's on the sheets or something. And so we figured the gold with the yellow would stand out, especially in dim light. We look at this, so we look at like, you can think about it almost like the BMW, you have the R1, which was our basic 2 series. If you just bought the appliance without any support, it cost $25, and more than half of that was going towards our fulfillment costs and shipping. So it was a relatively inexpensive appliance to compete against other inexpensive appliances that are available, on Amazon and stuff. And so we're going to continue selling the R1 because some people like it. And a lot of people, like, they don't want to spend a lot of money on their first mouth guard. Maybe they read a blog post or something. So we feel like $25, like that quick kind of test whether biomechanics works, kind of, good price point. So we'll continue selling the R1. The R2 is going to be like our BMW almost 5 series. So kind of it costs a fair bit more. It's $80. We wanted to make it cheaper for people that bought the R1. So we ourselves were a little bit disappointed in how long the R1 lasted. So anyone that had bought the R1, like, we wanted to reward them for their loyalty. So for every R1 that you purchase, you can take $25 off the price of R2 up until a max of 2 appliances. So you can get up to $50 off. So if you bought 2 R1s in the past, you can take $50 off the R2 price of $80 and it'll come down to $30, right? And this includes shipping, right? The other thing I was going to say is that the R2 comes with a 1-year guarantee with up to 2 free appliances. So if you go through 2 free replacement appliances. So if in 1 year you go through more than 3 appliances, we only do up to a maximum of 3. So also, if you have purchased, once you have purchased at least 2 appliances from us, then you can always continue to use that $30 R2 price point. So if you bought like 1 R1 and then you bought 1 R2 and you want to get a second one, you can continue to use the $30 price point. Also, if you bought the support package with community with the R1, there's no need to buy it again. We sell the R2 with support, but if you already have support from your R1, that support is good for an entire year and you don't have to buy it until the year is up. So anyway, that's our new R2. I hope you like it. We're getting some feedback already on it and continue to send that feedback in. Hope you like it. Thanks.